Hello, you are brilliant.
You made it.
I was like, I'm not quite sure how this works.
Oh,
You are
this.
brilliant. One more thing, recreating the wheel, right?
Yes, yes. It's so
Oh,
funny. Just like Kathy Ross Nash, she was
oh.
like for like a week and a half. She's like, "How do I do this? What's gonna happen? I'm so nervous. What do we do? Where are we gonna be? Where do we meet? What stage?" I was like, "Just breathe. Like, you guys can stand in front of thousands of people and teach them how to do Pilates with your eyes closed, and you're afraid to be on the bottom screen on your phone."
Well,
That's what's happening right now.
I mean, honestly, can't we just have coffee instead? I
This
mean,
is coffee. I got like
I like to see people. I like to feel them. I like to touch them. I like to have eye contact.
yes.
I like to have that body aware, like feedback in the room when they walk in. Are they happy? Are
Mhm.
they confused like me today? I know.
So for those who don't know you, can you say your name and your business name and what you do?
Sure. My name is Gina. I'm from Grasshopper Pilates. I'm in New York City, and I have been teaching Pilates since 1996 when I got certified.
Mhm.
And I love what I do. I haven't created a huge empire, but I've created a home and I've created a place where I love to work and where I love to connect with people and help them out. And that's what I do.
Yes. So you said empire though. Like I mean, like what would a Plies empire look like in your mind if you don't have that?
And Pilates empire, like the whole, gosh, what is an empire? The videos, the studio, the gym, the you know, where it's spin-offs of you, who you are and what you are and what you're doing. I just kind of, I feel like that's been too much. I've always wanted to keep it a little bit closer to home
Hmm.
and more who I am. And it's tricky because even when I teach in my studio, I feel that I want to get my hand on every client, even though I want to give them to other teachers and
Yes.
have them experience other teachers. I want them to remember what I suggested or what they had that connection with the last time they were with me. And I just want to keep it closer to home, I think.
Hmm.
And so the empire of not being, I don't know, whatever it may be. I'm not even going to
Yes.
name names.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you because we it's I think that I bring that back to my personal training days, and there's people who come out of any kind of course and they want to just help people. And then there's people who have this idea of helping as many people as possible, and they do it in a way that you lose contact with the original vision is. And I
Mm,
hear in what you're saying there, you want to stay true to who you are and not let that get diluted as you get bigger and bigger and bigger.
right. I've watched that with few people and I've seen how it's changed. And it's kudos to them for being business people and being able to tap into that. And perhaps
Hmm.
it's probably one of my personal downfalls. And then I think, oh my gosh, that's my failure in Pilates is that I'm not this huge, well-known creative beast that's been out there for 20 years, teaching 20 some years. But
Yes.
yet at the same time, I have to realize that what I've done is worth its weight in gold. So I'm
Yes.
good, you know.
Yeah. Because you've been teaching for quite a while, and yes, like my body Miller is saying there too, like solid core values matter. Um, you stay true to yourself, you stay true to your core values, and you've been teaching. You've been in the game for a long time,
The game. It's funny
right?
you call it the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have been in the game, but for so many years I stood on the side and instead of going out and going crazy. So I've sort of left the politics aside for many years
Yes.
because when I started in the 90s, mid 90s, right after I got certified, I was certified with Romana and Bob and Carol Dodge Baker was my initial teacher at Purchase because that's where I did it in college.
Hmm.
Um, and then it sort of blew up in the late 90s with the whole trademark
Yes.
lawsuit.
Lawsuit.
And then it was the fight over who's real, who's not real, who's Ramana, who's not Ramana. And there were so many other amazing teachers, and I don't want to say disciples, but they were disciples that were under Joseph Pilates that
Mm-hmm.
had learned and had left Manhattan. And some people had left Manhattan because that's just what they wanted to do. They personally left Manhattan. They didn't leave to get away from Ramana or anyone else. So there's so many people out there that have so much to share. And I think over the last year and a half, I've really kind of reintegrated myself back into the Pilates community in a different way that I never have. And it's been fascinating because what I've realized is that we're so much more alike than we are not. And I think it's
Yes.
so cool how, you know, we've been so separated, like you're that style, you're this style, we're this, you're that, and you're not this. I understand
Mm-hmm.
how I kind of, my whole method is like staying true to what I learned from Ramana. And
Yes.
when I find someone else who has learned from Ramana or learned from Joseph Pilates, I try to stay true to them as well and not create things. And
Yes.
I find it really, I find it fascinating how much we are alike and how we all have the same goal in mind, is helping people and making people feel better about themselves and learn about themselves. I mean, that's the coolest part. I mean, I love watching a client say, "Oh my gosh, I'm doing this again." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't have to tell you
Yes.
anymore." You know,
Right. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah.
There's, yeah, those moments when people do that. And I love it when clients not only like they acknowledge it, like, oh my gosh, I just did this. I've had clients that say, for example, they walk up and then all of a sudden they're walking down the stairs and not holding onto a railing anymore. And then they're like, I haven't held onto a railing in like 3 weeks. I used to hold on for dear life going downstairs because I wasn't sure about my knees or sure about my core. And
Uh-huh.
since I've been doing Pilates, I don't even think about it anymore. Like, I
Yeah.
love those aha moments that we get as instructors are golden.
They are
Yeah.
golden, and because it's so natural for us, like we forget
Yes.
how difficult it is to walk up and down steps.
Mhm.
Until I go into the subway and I watch people struggling going up and down the steps, and I like, oh, I just want to give them a little, you know, morsel of information just to help them up the steps, or even hold
Yes.
their hands. I mean, I don't know how
Right.
many, I mean, countless times I've taken people's bags and say, let me help you out. And they're like, really? And I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm not going to steal your stuff. I'm just going to help you up the steps, you know?
Yes. Yes.
And that's just out of the studio. And you look at people and then when people come into the studio and they understand these little things and these
Mhm.
little things that we give them that are so huge for them, I just
Yes.
love it. I love it. I love watching it. I mean, that's why I do this stuff. I love watching people grow. I love watching people learn about themselves. I love people's
Yes.
confidence going up. You know, I mean,
Hmm.
because
Absolutely.
that's something that as an adult, how often do you get a confident boost as an adult or even as a kid? I mean, as a kid, your parents constantly saying, oh, you did
Yeah. Someone's
great,
cheering
or
you on.
you know, they cheer you on, or you know, just an acknowledgement. You know,
Mhm.
I love to acknowledge people and just be like, wow, you did that really well, and keep going. And the
Yes.
other thing I love to say is, you know, 3 good tries and let's move on. It's not about getting discouraged about something because you're
Yes.
going to get stuck. There's no reason to get somebody to stuck in one exercise. Who
Right.
cares?
Yeah.
It's one exercise.
Yeah. Well,
So,
people are so achievement oriented though, right? It's like we have to really kind of coddle their egos sometimes along when they can't get an exercise and maybe, toss them an exercise that they can just kill it, right? So they feel good about themselves and then move on, right? Like,
totally. Totally.
yeah.
Isn't that true?
There's
That's so true. It's really fascinating. And coming from a dancer background, because I danced for many years before Pilates, I was always detail oriented. You know, I wanted to know
yes.
why, and I always had to do it with perfect form. And I always felt like that was almost like a default for me in dancing because I never lifted my hip up so that I can get my leg higher, and I always had to be square. And I never figured it out. And I was like, now I realize that sometimes you do got to let the hip go a little bit.
Hmm.
Sometimes you have to go off balance. Sometimes you have to do things. So it's really fascinating now going back. Now I still take ballet classes. I took 10 years off in my 30s. And then I had a knee injury running to work one time. I was jogging to work and I had like a yard sale trip and spill on the
Oh
street.
man.
It was
Yeah.
horrible. And I fractured my kneecap and basically all the marrow came out of it. And so I dragged myself to the studio, which was 4 blocks away,
Yes.
up and taught for the whole morning. And I said, oh, I'm fine. I was walking backwards. My legs stopped working. And I'm like walking backwards through I'm like, what am I doing? You know,
Yeah.
like we're crazy. We're crazy. Like, and I have to keep going. Like I have a mission. I have to help these people. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
after my shift, I was like, I think I have to go to the hospital. Yeah. And then what was really fascinating is I was starting doing physical therapy with somebody who was not Pilates and who was just a PT and who who was looking at me and just, some PTs have to look at you in pieces. That's just how
Yes.
they have to do it.
Right.
And that's how they have to. And I'm always like, could you work on my psoas or could you work on this? And it's your knee, it's not your psoas. And I'm like, well, I know they're all connected. And it was fascinating that I used that physical therapist to help me with my strength training. And then
Yes.
I used a different physical therapist to work on all the connections. And then I used other things like, acupuncture as well. I mean, I was like, I'm going to fast track myself back. And,
Yes.
and the physical therapist that was the one who worked on all the like maintaining muscles and building that strength back up said, what do you want to do again? And I thought, what do you mean? What do I want to do? And he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know.
That's a
He's
great
like, well,
question.
yeah. And I thought, I don't know what I want. No one asks me what I want to do. I ask people every day what they want to do.
Yes.
Nobody asks me. So I thought, wow, I'm going to get back to ballet class. And it was 10 years that I had been out of the ballet studio. And I was like 38 and I was like, oh my God, being back as a dancer at 38, 10 years off, this is going to be so humbling and humiliating.
Yes.
And I went to like my happy place in the back corner of the bar by the piano and listened to the music and just, found my way through it, suffering,
Yes.
struggling, smiling, laughing, and I haven't stopped since. So I take ballet classes twice a week still. And I attribute it to all my Pilates because it's the glue. And so I'm in class with these pre-professionals and some professionals and some city ballet dancers come down and take class with our amazing teachers who we love. And I'm like, I'm 49 and I'm still doing the same shit you're doing. And how am I doing it? Pilates, people, figure this out. You've got to figure it out. Find something that glues you back together. And I mean, the truth, what they say, the truth is in the pudding, or, I mean, it really works. And it makes me happy. Pilates makes me happy. Dance makes me happy. Helping people makes me happy. Making connections like this. I mean, I met you a year.
Chicago.
Chicago. And that was such a fun event. It was so much fun. And at Dana's place, and the people I met, and Jay, that was the first time I met Jay. I mean, I've heard about Jay for years and years, and I've just never crossed paths. And he was so inspiring and so gentle.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny when you're talking about those goals and that PT or that health professional asking, what do you want to do? I think that gets lost in our Pilates studios sometimes as people come in and they do their work, they do their classes, and Pilates becomes their sport. Pilates becomes their thing. And it's like, and if you think about the way that Joseph Pilates designed it, it was a means to your end. So you could have ease in life. So if you want to do gymnastics, you can. If you want to box, you can. If you want to be a runner, you can. And this makes those activities easier.
Totally.
Like Pilates wasn't the activity. Pilates was the means to make your activity easier.
Right. It was, but yet, they did it differently. It was, you came 4 times a week and you were there for 40 minutes. You got an apple and a shower. You got your shower and your apple on your way out. You were in and out there in an hour. You weren't supervised, but you actually knew your routine.
Right.
People stood around and pointed and said, you're going to go do that one, that series on that poster, or you're going to do that. And then they corrected from far. It was definitely different. I don't know if they weren't as needy or it was just a different
Mm,
setup.
yes. Why is that lost? Like, why is it not like that on a regular basis in most studios
Well,
anymore?
I think that because of the way people sue so often now, and like it's just the people think more about, oh, you did this to me instead of I did this to myself. Like if
Ah,
somebody tripped on something, it would be someone else's fault instead of your fault for actually not looking down. And you know, so like I think that
yes.
that's sort of gotten taken away. Like you don't have any responsibility for yourself anymore. It's everyone else's fault, and you have to take responsibility for yourself. And I think it was different back then, and people just came and they did it, and then they left,
Mhm.
and it was definitely more responsible. Like you, I just kind of feel like it's changed in that sense. The whole world has, I think Pilates
Yes,
in general has changed,
it
but I
has.
think the whole
Yeah.
world has changed. I think because Pilates has exploded over the last 25 years, I think that you realize how dangerous it is on these apparatuses as opposed to just being on the floor. You can't fall off
Yes.
of the floor. I mean, you can fall into the floor and hurt yourself,
Hmm.
but you can't fall off. You can really hurt yourself on these apparatuses. And that's why you have to be with someone who really knows what you're doing and can really teach you the path of safety first, and then let's work out. You know, people come in and say, oh, I want
Yes.
to get on this machine. They come and they pull this and they find their way down. And I'm like, oh, stop. You know,
Slow
you're,
down. Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta slow down. I can't, you're making my heart skip. I can't take it, you know? And so I'm like, okay, so if you don't mind, come back up to standing with me. And I'm going to give you a little tutorial of
Hmm.
how to sit down on the reformer properly. And it is a way that I was taught by from Romana, and I try to stay with it because I really feel like it's important to have these good habits. And I think that's our job as Pilates instructors is
Yes.
to give good habits. And these habits are not only in the studio on the apparatuses, but they're at home. So if
Right.
you know, if your hips up constantly, are you constantly habitually sitting on the other side? I mean,
Hmm.
but figure out your patterns because all of
Yes.
this is patterns. And our job is to retrain and refocus the patterns. And those patterns are in the brain and in
Neural
you.
pathways.
Yeah. And you
Hmm.
thinking about it. Like you just can't change something from 1 hour a week, you know?
Celia was mentioning that too. She said if you take one class with her, this is my Monday person, and if you take nothing else away from it, learn how to drive your car with proper posture. Every leg reset, like all those different things. Like just there's so many different movement patterns and faulty movement patterns that we have in our everyday lives that set us up for pain and discomfort and muscle imbalances. So if you learn them in the studio, take them out into everyday life, which kind of comes back to the full circle. Like Pilates isn't the end; it's to allow you to have ease of movement in your everyday life.
Absolutely. Like everything you do lying down is just that you have good posture standing up and your posture for the day. You know,
Yes.
that's it's sort of like how I like to end my classes all the time. I'm like, and there you go. And there's your posture for your day.
Mm.
Go fly away, little birds, fly away.
Yes. Not the most like dude comment, but that's fine. I'll
I
fly away
know,
anyway.
sorry. All right. Well, you don't fly away like a little bird. You can, you know, however you want to go. You can, like an
Okay.
eagle. You could be the
Thank
eagle.
you. I'll be an eagle. I'll take that.
I love teaching semi-privates. I think they're brilliant and I think they're good for everybody, including the client, because they have to have some sort of responsibility for themselves and their actions. And in my studio, that's sort of the way I set things up more often than privates. I do my privates as well, but then I do a lot of group semi-privates. And I don't do
Okay.
a lot of huge group classes because I'm in a small boutique studio, which you are
Hmm.
now, and you
Yes.
can understand. Like, so everybody wants that 10 a.m. slot, and how do I do it?
Hmm.
So I
Right.
figured out, so I have, you know, 4 reformers or 4 wall units, and I have my people come in and I've worked with them for years. Some of them I've worked for 22 years. It's amazing.
Yes.
You know, and they can always say, you know, oh, don't forget this, or you know, you might want to do this. But for the most part, you know, I'll have 4 people and one person who's had spinal surgery and a fusion, you know, one person who has had a knee injury and and one person that's healthy and one person that's sort of in the game. And,
Yes.
you know, I can say to the one, the person with the spinal injury, you're not going to do short spine. You're going to go over there and you're going to do something else. And
Yes.
set yourself up and I'll come check on you. And then I have them keep moving, and then I have them come back together. And it's sort of like an accordion, and they go out and they come back together. And I
Yes.
find it's interesting because I'm always so anxious about somebody waiting for me to tell them what to do. So
Right.
instead I say, go lay down and you can start this. And they say, oh, I don't remember. Oh, okay, I'll help you remind you. And I'll remind you again, and I'll remind you again. And then you're going to remember. And it's
Yes.
fascinating because they start to remember, and they start to tune in to themselves and the workout instead of checking
Yes.
out. You know,
Right. Exactly.
part of them showing up. I mean, the hardest part of doing the Pilates workout is showing up. That's it. Getting
Yes.
dressed and walking in that door. And some
Right.
people can't even handle that on a regular basis because something stops them. And then they realize how much they need this, and they commit to it in themselves. And and it's really good. I mean, I love doing the semi-privates. You have to be like a hawk, and you have to be
Yes.
able to watch everyone from here to here and there, and watch and
How many
teach and
people? How
cue.
many people do you have in your semi-privates?
I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit. How many
I'm
people do I
sorry.
usually teach?
Yes, for a semi-private.
For semi-private, 4.
Four. Okay.
Yeah, I teach 4. And again, they can have their issues, and I can work with them. And, you know, but I've had them all before. And like I said, that most of them have been coming with me for a long time. You know,
Yes.
and you have the range of people. And, you know, someone who's just come back from, you know, lung cancer, you can't throw them into that group. You
Right.
need to help them get back into their body, help them
Yes.
relate to what's going on. And it's fascinating. I'm going through this fascia manipulation course, which is mind blowing. And it's all wrapped together, as we know, your whole body. But it's
Yes.
just fascinating. And it's taught me so much more. And I look at things so much differently as a teacher now. And I work with clients differently too, which is fascinating. And
Yes.
I just, it's really, I constantly feel like there's so much space to learn in our
There
industry.
is. Oh yeah, absolutely. And it comes down to like your area of passion, right? Like one of the questions I ask everyone, I could probably clip everyone's answer together at some point. Who is your ideal client?
Mm. Yeah, good question.
Right. Right.
My ideal client,
Yes.
someone who is ready to learn.
Okay.
That's it. They don't have to be broken. They don't have to
Mhm.
be perfect. They don't
Okay.
have to be driven. I mean, that helps. You know, having that drive to work is wonderful, but having the ability to listen and learn and be open is my ideal client. So that could be anyone. You know, I've
It
got
can
people
be
who come in
anybody.
who've been doing it longer than me, and I love it. I love when a client comes in who's been doing Pilates longer than me, and she'll say, "Well, Naja used to do it this way." I'm like,
Hmm.
fantastic. I love that, you know. And then, you know, also funny, and I'm like, well, my favorite tagline is, today we're doing it this way. Today I want you to try this, because
Yes.
tomorrow I may change my mind. And 6 years ago you might have been taught something today. And you know, classical Pilates that I was trained from, I try to keep it true to the source of what I learned from
Yes.
Romana.
Hmm.
And I worked with Romana and Bob longer, because Bob was around longer in
Yes.
my life, and who had just left us, you know, Bob Leakins 2 years ago,
Right.
sadly. And he was a
He was
huge
a real
force.
mentor, right? He's like sound like
Big time.
just from the few times you mentioned him, like you could tell like he had a tremendous impact on your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
He had an impact not only on my life, but so many different people. And the one thing about him is he was so consistent. He
Hmm.
and if you did something different, he would ask you, why did you do that? And if you had a good answer, he would say, oh, okay, that makes sense. But most of the time it was like, well, it's actually typically done this way, you know. And
Yes.
he questioned, but he didn't instigate. He wasn't mean. He was always open. And his soul, his heart and soul was just really in about
Mm.
sharing the love and the clarity of Pilates that he had. And he had worked with Ramana in the 90s to put together the original syllabus that she had done with the Pilates studio, which is what I have.
Okay.
And it was fascinating because he worked on that with her for years and honed it in. And then he went from there to another place. And then from there, he left and he kind of stopped. And he stopped because he left when he left Power Pilates. He was like, I just need to be out of this. It was like a
Space.
huge business. Everybody knows
Yes.
Power Pilates.
Hmm.
Um, and they did a great job getting out the love of Pilates and the clarity and the action of it, right? I mean, they were
Yes.
really solid teacher trainers. I mean, they had some amazing people in that program. And then when he left, it kind of broke my heart that he left because he was such a strong person and a strong teacher in our community and in so many people's lives. And I
Mm.
just respect him from the bottom of my heart. And he went to Europe and he started creating a program over there.
Okay.
And because every time he started to do anything here, he would get like a lawsuit, which was so sad because I mean, this man had zero, he was like a dancer mentality. He
Okay.
lived paycheck to paycheck. He devoted his life and he said to us, Gina, half your paycheck is going to be in not in money, but it's going to be in love from your clients and gratitude from your clients. And it's really true. I don't feel like, I'm making millions or hundreds of thousands of doing what I love to do, but that's
Hmm.
okay because I really love it. Um,
Yes.
and and for me, it's worth it in that sense. So I mean, I guess back to your client, who it was, I just want someone who's ready to learn and who likes to learn and who gets a little spark in their eye. You can see it when
Yes.
somebody gets that
Right.
spark and you're like,
Yes.
ooh, they're getting it. And oh, they want more or they understand it. And I mean, yeah, that person, there's also, I remember teaching this one person when I first got certified, and it was up at 74th Street, the Pilates studio. And I was teaching him and we were doing the footwork. And I said, okay, bend your knees and come in. And he did something and he lifted his leg off the bar or something. And I was like, what? No, no. I couldn't articulate it, right? So my fault,
Yes.
his
Yes.
fault, whatever. 10 years down the road, I'm teaching him at another studio and he says the same exact thing. He says, I mean, I see him, he walks in and and I said, okay, bend your knees and come in. And he bent his knee and lifted off the bar. And I said, wait a second, 19, I know
Yeah.
you.
Right.
And I'm
Yes.
like, what is it? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, 74th Street, 96. And he was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, I said the same sentence to you and you did the same exact thing. And it
He
turned out he
interpreted the same
had,
way. Love
yeah,
it.
and he had been doing Pilates elsewhere. And his body had changed like I had never seen it. It was
Mhm.
amazing, but it was amazing like that same cue still
Yes.
laid in his brain. Like that's what he had to do because that's what I said, but his that's what his
Interpretation.
program was.
Yes, and I think that that kind of lends to a conversation about how we teach, and Brett Howard and I were talking about that. It's not about the way that we teach it, it's about the way that it's heard. What kind of learner do we have in front of us?
Totally.
What kind of reception, like how are they going to receive the way we teach it? Maybe I need to say it differently. Maybe I need to demonstrate it. Maybe I need to touch them, demonstrate it, and say it. You know what I mean? Like, and when we recognize who we have in front of us, then that allows us to be versatile in the way that we communicate our message. Like love
So true.
languages. Like I can't love you the way that that I want to be loved. I need to love you the way that you want to be loved. So I need to be able to speak it in their language,
Yes.
not in my language.
It's so true. It's so true. And I kind of feel like that's the challenge teaching virtually is that
Yes.
you can't always feel it or see it or can because it may be dark in there. I'm always like, could you please turn your lights on or can
Mm-hmm.
you face me a little bit more? And you really it's a whole new learning tool for us. Yes, and
Yes.
platform of being able to communicate through this device. And
Right.
and I I mean I find it really I love a challenge. God, I love a
Yes. It's a
challenge. You give me an exercise, show me what you want me to do, I will work on it. And this challenge has been so interesting. And I think the challenge for the most part for me has been technically trying to like revamp how to do what I do in a studio
Mm,
on the computer. I mean, how do you
right.
do Linktree? How do you do Eventbrite? How do you do this? How do you
Mm,
link them all together? You know, I mean,
yes.
just I mean, it's and I kind of feel like, oh, I feel so happy I get one thing, and then it's like I fix my wheel and I stand it all up, and the next morning it's like,
It's laned. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
you know, and I kind of feel like,
Yes.
okay, so like as Pilates studio owners or teachers who are out there right now, you're not alone. We were all sort of struggling through this together, which is humbling and
Mhm.
exhausting, I would say, um, but still
And
rewarding.
exciting.
Yeah,
Definitely exciting and definitely rewarding. Like I love it. I'm embracing it, and I'm jumping out, with both feet into different things and taking advantage of this space. For example, instead of looking at getting some massive 5,000 square foot space, I have 200 square feet. It
I know.
is a micro business. It is a
It's
boutique.
perfect.
It's perfect. It's a broadcast studio because
Yeah.
half of the world is coming to me now. I don't have to wait for them to show up physically in this building anymore.
Yeah. Yes. So that has changed for us, which is really exciting. It totally is
Yes,
exciting.
yes,
Um,
yes.
and I guess and having a small boutique studio is also rewarding in the sense that you have so much control over the situation,
Yes.
and you can do differently now because you can
Mhm.
take everything out of your little studio and take it into the world, which is
Yes.
so rewarding and so fascinating. It's really exciting when you said to me the other day that you started your own boutique studio, and I was like, ah,
Mhm.
so exciting. You know,
I
having
know.
had my studio for 20 years. It was April was my 20th year anniversary for having my own business
Wow.
in New York
Awesome.
City. Yeah, thanks. It's pretty exciting. And then I was like, whoa, what happened? Like we just like hit the wall with this whole
Mhm.
pandemic. And
Right.
it's been pretty cool. So I've been doing free classes on Saturdays
Mhm.
since April, and we also did a class with the Pilates Standard, which is the teacher training program that Bob created, and
Okay.
which was
Yep.
started in Europe, and we're bringing it to the United States, which is really really exciting because
Yes.
I mean he is so smart and so brilliant and has done so much work on this, and he's worked on this for 20 some years, and
Mhm.
it's so rewarding to like to be part of this. And he's asked
Yes.
me for years to be a teacher trainer, and I'm like, but I've got, I've got my own studio, Bob. You don't know it. It's a lot of work. That was my first baby. Grasshopper Pilates was my first baby, and it started in a boxing gym, which was so cool. I was in the corner of a boxing gym of a friend.
Yes.
I had my
Okay.
reformer, my barrel, and my chair, and my wall unit. And I kind of got thrown right out of a Pilates studio, which broke my heart and was devastating, which was so confusing as a 20-something-year-old that had
Yes.
happened. And I've been given, a long story, but anyway, so I
Mhm.
got pushed out, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise and one of the best blessings
Yes.
that had ever happened to me. So sometimes
Right.
when things happen to you, like bumps in the road, like pandemics, it could actually be a blessing in disguise. So we got to figure that one out and kind of look at the little silver lining of things.
Yes.
But so when,
Look.
yeah, so when I left and did my own thing, it was really scary and really rewarding and
Mhm.
fascinating. And as a new business owner, you have to take, and you've been in the industry for a long time, but for anyone else who's listening, you can't take things personally all the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You put all this heart and soul into a new client that shows up, and you give them all this love, and then they don't come back, and you're like, what did I do
Right.
wrong?
Yes. It's me. No. No. No.
I know. I mean, we've all been through that, and it's. I mean, maybe I'm overly sensitive, but I know I'm a really sensitive person. I've been sensitive since I was born. I've also been like a leader since I was born. I swear that since in the utero, I have a twin brother.
Mhm.
I have been a leader since in birth.
Yeah.
And I was in there and I said, come on, we're going out and we're going out this way. And you know, he followed me out. And I truly believe, it's funny, when I learned that about myself, I think it was like 15 years ago, I was like, that is just so right. So right. Like it's like so who I am. And like I was teaching dance to kids when I was younger so that I could afford to go to ballet class and modern class and tap
Yes.
class, because I couldn't go, we couldn't afford the $40 a month. So
Right.
the teacher said to me, Miss Susie said, well, do you want to be a teacher assistant so you can take, I was like, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I was in 6th grade and I was assisting teaching for her, for younger kids. And I
That's
loved it.
amazing. I
Yeah.
love when we get to a point in our lives where we can look back and connect the dots between leadership opportunities, education opportunities, teaching opportunities, disappointments, crises that were actually opportunities, you know, the biggest letdowns which actually open up the biggest doors for us. Like
Yes.
it's like you draw that thread through it. You know, my wife talks about that all the time. Like, there's so many things that, like, if you sit there at your lowest point, if someone was to come to you at your lowest point in your life and say, you know what, 15 years from now, you're going to own your own studio, you're going to have a happy life around you, you're going to be recognized, you're going to be doing what you love, and you're going to have all this expression of all your gifts and talents, you wouldn't believe it in that second.
Oh, God, no.
Not at
No.
all.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, I remember crying in the streets of Tribeca after I got let go, or you know, she let me go. I was like, let me
Hmm.
go. What does that mean? You know, I was
Yeah, yeah.
so
Devastated, I can
devastated.
imagine. Yeah.
I mean, it was like I didn't understand, and I had worked for 4 years, and it was fascinating, and it really turned out to be one of the best things that had happened to me, and it was time
Yes.
for me to move on. But I love I love consistency in my
Hmm.
life. I love that. I
Yes.
mean, who doesn't? You know, I
Hmm.
love commitment. Yeah. You don't
I
like consistency?
I love consistency. I love predictable. But I like you learn that because we're wired that way, sometimes we need some external factor to kick us out of our comfort zone
Totally.
because we're
Yes.
not going to make like we don't have in us the catalyst to make those changes. So something externally has to just boot us out of that comfort zone
Yes. Yes.
to get us
It's
to where
so
we need to
true.
be.
It's so true. And I love how you say your wife, Alex, has really given you so much direction and energy to help you with all this. And I think that's so important, because as a sole business owner, you take care of everything. You clean the toilets, you do the studio, you
Hmm.
maintain the reformers, you know, clients' bills, you do it all, right? It doesn't,
Yes.
and when you miss something, you missed it and you don't forget next time. And you are responsible for all of it. But when it comes to like there's no checks and balances. There's nobody there to check and
No.
balance you and say, hey,
Right.
how's that going? I know you wanted to do that.
Hmm.
What can I do to help you? Or
Yes.
I know someone who can help you. Or let's keep you on that path, because it's so easy to take that one thing that you wanted to do as a business
Hmm.
owner and kind of just move it over because you've got so many other things that you have to do, you know, and that's
Yes.
just your business owner life. You know, then you have your real life, your
Right.
family, and then you have your friend. I mean, you've got all these things, and
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
create who we all are. But
Yes.
how do we stay focused and not feel like the business is running your life? It's a really hard, consistent conversation I feel like I'm having, um,
Yes.
and feel like, how do I put down that phone and not have to worry about Instagram, and you know, post and be done for the
Boundaries.
day, and not have to see what other people are doing,
Hmm.
and just move forward with what I want to do in my business and hang with my family and give love to the people that need the love right
Hmm.
now.
Hmm. So you're talking about boundaries. You're talking about boundaries.
Yes. But setting boundaries on yourself is not easy ever.
Right.
It's easy to set boundaries on other people, like, oh, you can't do it this time, this time, or this time. So I guess turning the table and setting the boundaries on yourself is definitely something that's my downfall, because
Okay.
I put everybody else in front of me before I
Right.
think of me. And I
Hmm.
think of me as my family, or me as dinner that has to be made, you know, breakfast,
Hmm.
lunch, and
Right.
dinner, and check on the kids for learning now. And why wasn't that
Yes.
turned in? And Why are you on
Right.
the games? And I mean, I find this environment even a little bit more challenging
Yes.
with all
Well,
the
this
online
is
learning. Yeah.
yeah, it's so challenging. And like when Andrew, the owner of the studio where my studio is, when we were talking, I was saying that we wear so many hats, right? Like as I wear the dad hat, and I wear the husband hat, and I wear the business owner hat, and I wear the personal trainer hat, and I wear the Pilates coach hat, I wear the parent hat. And it's I'm wearing so many hats, I actually have to trade those in and call them capes now because I'm
I
supposed to
love
be
it.
Superman. I'm supposed to be Superman everywhere, right? Like, and you can't do that. So we need to really establish what those boundaries are in our life, what those important things are, and give space to those things, and then be unapologetic about saying no to other things,
Right. You're
right?
absolutely right.
Like
You're
part of that
absolutely right.
boundary is just being able to say no. Like just say it with me, no. Like like
No, I'm not
if
going to say it.
yeah
No.
yeah
No,
because
no. I'm
right.
so apologetic when I say no. No, no.
Mhm.
Sorry.
And same, I'm like, if my wife is still on here, same thing. It's one thing once you get no down to be able to say no and not follow it up with an excuse.
Mm, yeah, that's true.
Because her no's, I feel like I'm just like exposing my wife right now. Her no would be like, no, I can't do it because my kids have a hockey game, so I can't be. I was like, no is no. I have a prior engagement, no. Boom.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we always feel like we have to give an excuse. Like somebody compliments your shirt, you're like, "Oh, great! I got it on sale." You know, why does
Mhm.
it have to be on sale? Like,
Right.
you know, I bought the shirt. I like it. It doesn't
I like
matter how
it.
much it cost,
Right.
but thank you.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I think a lot of us fall in that same rhythm, and that's where the hard to say the no's to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one part of it is understanding those boundaries, learning when to say no. And the other part of it is being able to accept correction.
Mm-hmm.
Can we get to a place where if I were to put something out and it was wrong, that not only would I be able to say, I was wrong, I stand corrected, it should have been like this, but is it out there in a way where people are welcome to give me that correction? The people that I love, the people that I respect, the people that mean something to me have that permission to call me out on something that's not correct, because that's the other part of making me better.
Yes,
one
absolutely.
one part is to be able to say no, establish boundaries, and be who I am, and the other part is to recognize when I'm wrong and be able to right the path,
Right. Right.
and know that people have permission to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it sort of becomes of something that you're learned from as a child. And I think that as you become a parent, you think, oh, I want to, some things are just learned inherently. Like, and then you do things that like your parents might have done. And then you think, wow, I want to do that differently. Right. And so you try to pivot your focus
Yes.
and do it differently. And, oh, you shouldn't be crying. That used to be, my dad said,
Hmm.
don't cry because he didn't want to see me cry. Not because he wanted to stifle my feelings or my emotions, but that was hard for him. So he would say, don't cry, don't
Hmm.
cry. And like I said, I
Hmm.
was a very emotional person. So it's interesting. Like now I can revisit it as, oh, I see you're really upset and you're crying. What's going on? It's a whole different
Yes.
communication. And it's something that I'm learning now as an adult with my children. And it's hard to, those boundaries. It's funny because we have you can back it up in our family. Like if you've said something and you went off the hook, you can back it up and apologize and say that
Okay.
was wrong and I didn't mean for it to come up that way and I'm sorry. And I think that's the biggest thing I've ever taught my children and myself
Yes.
is that you can be sorry and you can say you've done something wrong and then you have to you have to really be accountable for it.
Hmm.
But you also have to learn from these things too. So it's the whole
Yes.
idea is freedom to make mistakes. And I
Hmm.
think for for as a business owner is we always fear of making mistakes or doing something
Mm.
wrong and saying something wrong or we're only human. Like
Right.
we got to remember this. Like we aren't the Superman people. I mean, I'm just delivering a message that I really love and I generally genuinely care about and I believe
Yes.
in and I think that it just it makes me happy. I see how it makes other people happy. I see how it brings people
Hmm.
together and
Yes.
can have, I mean, conversations like this. I mean, when I met you, a year ago, who knew I'd be sitting there having a conversation with you? And, there's
Yeah.
still so much more I want to talk about. We just
I
need to sit
I
down and have
know.
coffee.
No. Do you want to tell us about your baby? You put that little teaser in your ad for today. So
Yeah, just saying my first baby definitely was my studio and having it be
okay.
20 years old and watching it grow and change and having my business go from within a business, a
Hmm.
boxing facility, and then going to my own in Tribeca on the streets. And that was that, I mean, 9/11 happened. So I made it through 9/11 back and grew my business again. And then I was on my own. And then I decided to go into a partnership for 11 years, which was interesting. I learned so much about being in a business and working together, and it's challenging because everybody has their strong suits, and I'm bossy, man. Having my own space already, I had things the way I wanted them to go,
Yes,
and
it was
that
comfortable. It was your way. That's how we roll.
it was clean, just clean. You just pick the cup up, and
Right.
not everybody sees those details the same way. And so maneuvering and working together with different people who I adored and respected was definitely a learning experience. And so what's interesting is that I had left that recently a year ago and opened
Hmm.
back up to just myself, just Grasshopper all over again. So
Yes.
after 18 years of going through it, I decided, okay, I'm either going to quit or I'm going to keep doing what I love to do and do it on my own. And my husband's always said you should be doing it on your own anyways. And there's such that fear element of doing it on your own. And now you're on your own in within a facility, which is interesting, right? So
Yes.
you've got people around you to help, which is a great way.
Hmm.
And I really find that a really smart way to do it. I
Yeah.
also, what's so cool now is that you have to keep finding teachers that inspire you. You have to keep
Yes.
finding um, studios that make you smile. Go in, feel the vibe, leave. We're not going to be doing that for a little while, but so then take a Zoom class, take a
Yes.
workshop with somebody. I mean, there are so many amazing people out there right now that are doing workshops that are usually
Honestly.
150, $200, and they're doing it for like 30 bucks.
Yes.
Run,
Right.
run. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a Pilates teacher's dream right there now.
It is. This is such a prime time for learning and growing and launching a business. And I just want to say too, like Gina, you've been a real encouragement to me. Like even from our conversations in Chicago, you're like, go, just go for it, just do it. Like you've just been pushing me every opportunity, like, and you've had your ups and downs, and you're not like, oh, I got burned. You don't want to do that. You're like, go for it still. Like,
I mean, yeah,
yeah. And with that, moving from a boxing studio to your own space to a shared space to own space, there's an ebb and flow that happens with that where it's not like there's one exact perfect precise way to do it. You can find your groove and find your space and allow that to just give you the opportunity to grow your business in the way that is best for you and your environment. So
absolutely.
I, yeah, and for me here even in this gym, because I still do personal training, I am passionate about fitness. I now have the luxury of having a dedicated Pilates studio, and I can take someone onto the gym floor and then provide that resistance training and help them there too. So
Mm.
contrology meets resistance training and weights and stuff like that, and I can give people meet them at their point of need everywhere in this one space.
Which is brilliant, which is really
Hmm.
brilliant. And I mean, it was what back in the days with Romana when there was people doing like on the rings doing like flips, and there were some parallel bars there that were like ground level, and you would see these little old
Yes.
ladies doing their things. I mean, inspiration. Like you just need to be inspired. Find someone
Yes.
that inspires you.
Well
If you
said.
trust them, stay with them, follow their lead, leave them, come back, whatever it is. But find someone that makes you
Inspired.
inspired, feel that spark, feel that
Yes.
love, and
Yes.
that isn't giving you conditionally. It has to be unconditional,
Yes.
you know, because we give and give and give. and we give what we with our heart and
Hmm.
you and our soul. So when that person comes in, you don't say, "Oh, you have to come back." You're like, "Oh, I really hope to see you again," because you really mean
Yes.
that. I don't
Right.
I don't really need your $125. I mean,
Mhm.
I hope you come back because there's so many more things I want to work on with you.
Yes, exactly. That's what
Yeah,
draws them in.
yeah, yeah.
Gina, we've talked for 50 minutes. It's been so good. I love what you're just saying about inspiration and being inspired and just finding those people that inspire you. And that's exactly it. And as we find those boundaries in our lives and we learn how to say no and stuff, we get better, we get stronger, and we help people from our place of
I
confidence.
mean, my biggest thing is, there's that saying out there, feel the fear and do it anyways. When I read
Yes.
that 20 years ago, I mean, honestly, just go out there and try. That's all you got to do.
Yes.
Go out there and
Yes.
try. And you are such a light. And I love that you're doing this with the community. And I'm so excited that you're doing your own thing. And I can't wait to see it one day.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Core Conversations. This organic platform has been made possible by amazing people like yourself. So if you're a Pilates instructor or a movement specialist of some kind and you want to be a guest, please message me. If you're in some other field and the messages just resonate with you, message me. I'd love to have you on. All of our messages connect, and for some reason they all help us in this battle. We're all in this game together, so I'd love to hear from you. Let your words be life to someone else. Check out our website, personalvictory.ca. Click the Core Conversations page to see who our upcoming guests are, and I will see you next time on Core Conversations.